what I get to do now is introduce someone that, again, today I was thinking of this man, and the people we get to meet in our industry. We have the best people in our industry. If you're a youngster and you want engineering, or you want to be out there with something great, you saw the 2 tractor trailers running, the second one being totally controlled by the front one. We're not a woo-hoo, 18-wheeler, hit the horn. When you look at the technology in this industry and what's going on, the fact that we now have 3 young men that are working for us that are eating up with our industry. I never thought that we would keep Generation Y, because when we go to our conventions, we understand that Generation X and Generation Y, they're gone. It's like, okay, well, am I going to be president next week? You know, I can't wait. And it's not true. These young men and women that are coming out of these colleges, they get it, they're smart, they're bright, and we have an industry that attracts them. And that's something that it took me a long time to understand, that we can do that with them. And in this industry, I was able to meet a man that actually ran the government for 8 years the way a government ought to be run, when he was the governor of Kansas. It shows that it can be done. And as a friend, I would, regardless of the fact that he leads our industry in everything that we do, he is our leader, he is our CEO, he is our president, he is the guy that we follow. He's a born leader. He was twice elected with, I think, 70+% of the votes in Kansas. I don't care where you are, get 70% of the votes in any election is incredible. And I'm going to tell a quick story on Bill. Maybe a couple of them. But,
there's time.
We were having dinner together at a very nice restaurant, and there was a table next to the governor, and they kept pointing at him and motioning, and finally Bill said, I need to go over and talk to my constituents and say hello to them. And he went over and talked to them, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, and he came back, and I said, Bill, you know, who are they? He said, well, they think I'm the senator that's in now, right now, Senator Smith or whatever it is. I said, well, did you tell him you weren't? He said, no, I just went along with it. It's to meet people and to be able to learn from people like Governor Bill Graves. That's what we have in our industry. And I'm going to ask each of you tonight, when you talk to Bill, to ask him to stay on at the ATA. We need his leadership. I know he's probably dying over here right now, but yeah, he is. I'm not looking. We need him. He has taken us, as Rob so eloquently said, through some major hurdles with the government. We have a highway bill that's key to all of what we do today out there, and he understands politics. There's no one, he has what I like to say is good old boy, cowboy honesty. This is a man of principle. He's been that way his whole lifetime, and I'm glad to introduce my friend Bill Graves.
All right, let's admit, you have to wonder what Tim was thinking when he said, why don't I invite a former politician from Washington, D.C. to liven up this evening? Being governor was I didn't plan to go here, but I'll just tell you, it was the most fabulous 8 years of my life. But as I've often said, term limits are a wonderful, wonderful thing. Because it gives you a chance to just honorably get out of the way before you get run over. And I tell people all the time, I term limited out. I left office with the same wife that I started with. Was never indicted for anything, and I have gainful employment, you know, at the end. So it was great. I want to start by saying to Rob, I couldn't help but think, and the presentation on fuel efficiency was terrific. And I couldn't help but think, we had our meeting 2 weeks ago in Philadelphia, and and I was actually looking for Tim, and of course spotted him at the Meritor booth. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in a little chair looking at a video screen, watching about a 15-minute presentation on down speeding. And the gentleman who did the presentation is like the character out of Back to the Future, the Mad Professor.
That's his nickname.
I mean, unbelievable. Of course,
We don't let him out much.
after Tim got me seated and into this presentation, Tim vanished. He was nowhere to be seen. But, so I know a lot about down speeding, and I want to thank the Mad Professor. So, listen, Tim called me and said, you know, come over and just say a few things, and I promise I'm going to say a few things, but there's two parts to this. One is proper acknowledgement of the importance of this evening, and two is because it is what I do for a living at the American Trucking Associations. I'm going to talk very briefly just about Washington for a second, and they're actually working the highway bill as we speak. So there's actually a lot of action going on. But first of all, Tim called me and you know, that old adage about, you know, he said, you know, do you believe in free speech? And I said, absolutely. And he said, well, have I got a deal for you? Tim, this is important because Tim is my friend, and Kathy, we've had some great times together. So much of this industry is about relationships. And I think oftentimes that sort of gets overlooked, and occasionally there's sort of a new breed of younger person that comes into the industry who maybe doesn't get it or hasn't been part of that. But relationships count. And just gathering like this tonight to celebrate something so special as the 1 millionth kit is a meaningful part of being part of the trucking industry. So Tim, thanks for your friendship and for letting me be part of this special event. And the partnership with Meritor. And obviously they're a tremendous allied partner in our industry and do great things on behalf of the American Trucking Association, and we appreciate that. I know you already heard the presentation about fuel efficiency, and there's no denying we are under a lot of pressure, in part because you know, we can't depend on fuel prices being where they are today. As nice as it might be, anybody that's banking on fuel prices always hovering down where they are is a fool. And we've got government pressure to meet fuel efficiency standards, phase 1, phase 2, and there'll probably be a phase 3. I mean, we just have to be more efficient. And this is such a critical element in our ability to do that. In fact, that's why in phase 2, it specifically mentions this technology is one of the ways you get to jumping over the bar that the EPA has set. So in that regard, it's critically important. But from where I sit, when I go in to meet with people in Washington, with members of Congress, a few of them from California ask me about fuel efficiency, but most of them ask me about safety. Everybody in Congress seems to have the notion of whether the trucking industry is safe or not, and proper inflation of tires is a key element in being able to operate safely. And so I don't want to lose sight of that important element because it drives almost every day a lot of what we do in Washington, trying to advocate on behalf of this industry as we move forward. I'm going back to Washington not first thing in the morning, but after spending some time over at the plant. But I'm going back, and we've thrown a lot of numbers out, Frank. In fact, Frank, I thought for a minute, was auditioning for president up here before the thing started. He was really working the crowd and kind of had it going. But we've thrown out a lot of numbers. I'm going back to Washington, and on Thursday morning, we're going to have another celebration a bit like this one. We're going to honor a gentleman whose name is Arthur Cage, C-A-G-E. He's been driving for 42 years, and he has over 6 million accident-free miles.
Nice.
I mean, unbelievable. I started thinking, driving the Beltway just about every day in Washington, I don't know that I could get 6 million miles without the idiots running into me. I mean, you know, if you were just trying to avoid people for 42 years, somebody would find you. Arthur King, over 6 million miles. That's 143,000 average miles per year, accident-free. So it's going to be a great celebration for us. And part of what allows drivers today to do that type of thing is they have now the ability, they have the technologies, the safety technologies that are supporting safe driving. And this is one of them, and thanks Tim and thanks Merida for making it possible. So my hat's off to all of you, and glad you had me here. Now, I got to say a couple things, 3 parts on politics. Paul Ryan, the highway bill, and presidential politics, very briefly. Paul Ryan is a great young man. He's a young man. And you know, there's the old adage, give a young man a chance. He's going to have his hands full. And I dealt with this even in my early days as governor. And to those of you who are very conservative in this audience, I admire conservative principles and people that really believe what they believe. A lot of conservatives in Congress don't really understand the word compromise. In fact, I once had a state legislator come into my office and tell me that compromise was a dirty word. And on the one hand, you get it, but on the other hand, it's pretty hard to govern when people are unwilling to compromise. And John Boehner got chewed up simply over the fact that he was trying to compromise and work out what he needed to do with Mitch McConnell in the Senate and with the White House, because that's how you govern. So Paul Ryan has a very high bar to jump over, and I wish him well. I hope, for those of you, when I go fishing and we have the white cooler, we call it the kill box, you know, you catch something and you throw it in the kill box. I hope Paul Ryan isn't in the kill box right now as Speaker of the House, because we need a speaker who can be effective and who can get the job done. But trust me, about the first time he has to make a tough decision that in any way appears to be moving center to compromise, he's going to have his hands full. So we need to pray for Paul Ryan. His first big test is the highway bill. They're actually working the highway bill on the floor right now. And one of the reasons they're doing that is because the new Congress, the new House, has allowed all kinds of amendments to be offered. At last count, there were 29 and 16, 39. There were at least 45 amendments that have been approved for consideration. And I don't know if that includes XM Bank and the repeal of Obamacare or whatever it's going to be, but the clock ticks each time somebody is offered the opportunity to offer an amendment. You'll be stunned to know this, but next week, or you won't be stunned to know this, next week is Veterans Day. So the Congress is off all week to celebrate Veterans Day. How many of you are off all week for Veterans Day next week? So we're operating under the 35th Highway Bill extension since 2009, and it expires on November the 20th. So there's a bit of work to do, and as a result, they're actually hard at it tonight, which I appreciate. Some of you and I have already talked. For those of you that are interested in trailer weights, they already defeated 91,000 pounds on 6 axles significantly. It wasn't even close. So there's not going to be an increase in weight. But right now, they're working on what I think could be one of the most important bills to impact our industry, because we have a number of issues embedded in it, not the least of which is we finally get some dedicated funding to go out and try to fix bottlenecks, some of the worst traffic problems in the country that impede the movement of freight. And so we're excited about the possibilities. It's not everything we want. It's still this crazy 6-year bill with only 3 years of funding. Leave it to Congress, you know, to do it that way, but that's what they've got, and so we're going to work hard to help them be successful. Finally, presidential politics. I don't know if you saw the quote today, the latest Trump. Trump said, "I don't know why all my competitors won't admit their inadequacies. I know I would if I had any." Okay, he didn't say that. I made that up. But you know he thinks it. He has that thought in his head. 1 year from today is the election. Now, it's not actually this date. I mean, it's this Tuesday. In 2016, the first day of November is Tuesday. And the election is always on the first Tuesday after the first Monday. So it's November the 8th, but it's a year from today. I would submit to all of you, and I said this in Philadelphia, and a few people didn't like it, but I mean, this may be the most, we say this every time, but this, I really truly believe, is the most important presidential election we've ever had in most of our lifetimes. There's too much unrest, too many crazy things going on in terms of foreign policy, there's too many challenges in terms of domestic policy, and we really need to get this one right. Collectively, we need to figure out how to get this one right. Now, the scary part is, because a lot of people feel today like you're really involved in it, you're watching and paying attention. What we tend to sometimes forget is we have a number of states that don't even have primary elections. Iowa has a caucus. So if you're in this crowd and you're from Iowa, unless you're going to be a part of the caucus group, you're not going to have anything to say about who Iowa supports or moves forward in the nominating process. A lot of states, candidates won't qualify. They won't have enough signatures. They won't pay the filing fee. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you may not even have a chance, if your state has a primary election for president, that you'll be part of that whole process. I think there's probably, at the end of the day, a strong possibility there actually could be a brokered convention when the Republicans meet in Cleveland. There hasn't been a brokered convention since 1976 in Kansas City, when Gerald Ford edged out Ronald Reagan for the nomination in '76. I expect there's a very good chance that might happen again. But I want to, some of you were there, but most of you were not, but we had a big ATA annual meeting in October of 2007, and we invited two individuals to come up and do that back and forth Republican versus Democrat thing you always see. And ironically enough, the Democrat that year was Terry McAuliffe, who was just previously the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. He was the Democrat talking head. He's the governor of Virginia today, which is kind of ironic. The Republican talking head was John Kasich. He had been the former chairman of the Budget Committee. He was out doing some talk show stuff, and he was just a political talking head. Now he's the governor of Ohio, and he is a presidential candidate. So we had those two go back and forth about what was going to happen. We're in October of '7, trying to predict October of '8. And I'll never forget, Terry McAuliffe emphatically said, the nomination is over. It is over. Hillary Clinton will win Super Tuesday. She'll be the Democratic nominee for president, and she'll be the next president of the United States. Well, that didn't happen, okay? So it's my way of saying to all of you, forget whatever you think today, because it's probably not likely going to be what happens. There is a long way to go between now and next November. And it might be amongst almost all of us that we get one shot. We may get to really pull the trigger one time, and it may be November 8th, when there are two candidates, one nominated by Republicans and one nominated by Democrats. And I have no idea who I'm going to vote for, but I'm going to be paying close attention, and I highly encourage you to do the same, because it's really, really going to matter. Tim, congratulations. Rob, congratulations. Let's have a wonderful evening. Thank you.